We'll talk about real estate prices and what to expect. Plus, I have some really big, awesome news I want to share with you you'll really be happy with. And also, there's major escalations in the war. It's going to affect everything. We're going to have a few clips about that in this video.
Iran fired a barrage of missiles into northern Iraq on Monday. A Kurdish news outlet says missiles fired by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards destroyed the home of a Kurdish businessman under the pretext that it was used by Israeli spies. Officials say at least 4 people were killed in the city of Erbil.
There have been some major escalations all over the world right now, especially in the Middle East.
Iran also fired missiles at what it called terror groups in northern Syria, describing them as a security threat. Meantime, U.S. Central Command says the U.S. Navy seized Iranian-made missiles that were en route to Houthi militants in Yemen. It happened during a raid off the coast of Somalia just last week. During the operation, 2 Navy SEALs went overboard, and those Navy SEALs are still missing as I speak.
And I can't wait any longer to give you the big news. We are bringing back, based on popular demand by you guys, we're bringing back the Peter Leeds app. It's free to anyone who's a subscriber to the peterleeds.com newsletter, or if you want to buy the app separately, it's just the newsletter sliced into different components that you can search. You can access all of our old files, our new files, but it's active right now. If you're a subscriber to the Peter Leeds newsletter, you can go to it right now. Go on the phone, you want to have the app on, and you go to m.peterleeds.com.
The Houthis are still on a rampage. They continue to attack cargo ships, forcing shipping giants to reroute their vessels and invariably disrupt the global flow of trade.
The escalations are feeding into more escalations, which are feeding into more escalations. This thing does not turn around. I don't see how it's going to calm down before it gets a lot worse.
We're also learning Houthi militants have claimed responsibility for striking a cargo ship owned by the United States in the Gulf of Aden on Monday. They vow any future strikes on Yemen will not go unanswered. They are vowing to retaliate.
The way I want to talk with you about the real estate market is that I'm going to go through this article from Forbes Advisor about what the common belief is for what's going to happen with the real estate market. Then I can give you my counterpoints or my views about what they're saying, and you can see what I'm thinking. Are we in a housing bubble? The Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas identified signs of a brewing U.S. housing bubble in a 2022 report. When there's widespread belief that today's robust price increases will continue, the housing market becomes unhinged from those fundamentals, the Dallas Fed report revealed. If many buyers share this belief, purchases arising from a fear of missing out can drive up prices and heighten expectations of strong house price increases.
Immediately after the attacks, there was uproar in Yemen. Tens of thousands of Yemeni citizens gathered in cities across the country protesting against the US-led airstrikes.
Keith Gumbinger says that if you bought a house for $300,000 3 years ago, you could have sold it for $500,000 last year, but now you'd only get $400,000 for it.
The more dangerous thing is what the Americans did in the Red Sea will harm all maritime navigation, even the ships that are not going to Palestine, even the ships which are not Israeli, even the ships that have nothing to do with the matter, because the sea has become a theater of fighting. Missiles, drones, and warships. Security has been disrupted. These arrogant fools have destroyed it.
How is today different from the 2008 housing market crash? In the lead up to the Great Recession, the housing market had been fueled by rapid credit expansion, increased leverage, and household expectations for house price growth that proved to be too optimistic, Kiefer says. It's weird that they say that that's how it's different from 2008, and everything they mentioned or talked about was absolutely the same as it was then. Right now, it's setting up exactly like then.
Mick Mulroy, former Deputy Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, sounded the alarm last week over what Iran might do after the U.S. launched a series of attacks on Iranian-backed rebels in Yemen who've been targeting commercial ships, angry over the violence in Gaza.
This brings up another important distinction between 2008 and today. Most borrowers now have fixed-rate mortgages. As a result, even though mortgage rates have doubled, current homeowners are seeing no change in their monthly principal and interest payments. A lot of mortgages, I don't know about your bank or where your mortgage is from, refresh every 5 years. So you have a fixed rate at whatever rate, but every 5 years the bank will go over that again and readjust those rates based on current environmental conditions.
As the protests were underway, the Houthis also released this video. It showed the group holding military exercises, including mortar launches. Houthi leaders, meanwhile, threatened strong and effective response against the US. Listen to this.
We are ready to sacrifice, and we long for martyrdom. We in the 6th Military Zone assure our dear people and the free Arab and Islamic nation of our readiness to fight the battle of the promised conquest and holy jihad with America and Israel.
By late 2009, nearly a quarter of U.S. homeowners were underwater or had negative equity in their homes, meaning that they owed more on their mortgages than what the house was actually worth.
All of this raising concern about a wider spillover of violence across the region stemming from the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. This morning, explosions in the city of Erbil, Iraq, after neighboring Iran launched ballistic missiles claiming to target the local headquarters of Israel's intelligence agency.
They say that due to the Red Sea meltdown, inflation is at the risk of rising again. And this would essentially push the prices up globally and impact the economic growth of several countries.
The typical homeowner has gained over $100,000 in net worth since 2019. The national median existing home price is roughly 48% higher than in January 2020. And I put in my script right here, I said, that is exactly why you should be afraid. Home prices are up 48% in a very short window of time. That kind of move has to unwind. Warning signs that could dampen the housing market. Experts say that the combination of high mortgage rates, inflated home values, and scarce inventory suggests that 2024 could remain a challenging year for the housing market. With mortgage rates at the highest level since the early 2000s and affordability at a record low, many potential buyers are priced out of the market.
And the third big outcome could be a full-blown war. You see, as the Houthis continue their attacks and the US strikes Houthi targets, there are fears that other parties also might get involved soon, like the Iran-backed Hezbollah group.
The rise in mortgage interest rates is due in part to the efforts of the Federal Reserve to tamp down the inflation, which they caused, that's an addition from me, which began surging in 2021 and hit a 40-year high of over 9% in June 2022.
We've done everything we can to deter this, but it obviously did not work, and the choice was up to Iran. So I do think Iran will likely amp up it through its proxies, of course.
Federal policymakers have raised the federal funds rate 11 times since March 2022 at the most aggressive pace since the 1980s.
The largest exporters of liquefied natural gas has stopped sending tankers via the Red Sea.
Now pay attention to this. This is actually backing up what I've been telling you for the last few videos now. Fed Chairman Jerome Powell stated at a recent conference that if it becomes clear that the Fed's policy is not sufficiently restrictive to bring inflation down to a sustainable 2% rate, policymakers will not hesitate to hike rates again.
They are rerouting their ships away from the Red Sea to a longer route across the African coastline. And this, by the way, will not only increase time and the consumption of fuel, but also have a severe impact on global trade. The outcome could be inflation in several countries.
The reason I keep talking about this is because everyone's expecting the rates to come down and they're just assuming that it's baked into the pie. Rates may go higher. We're going to have to see. We'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of things that are pushing inflation higher, even some of the military things that we're going to talk about in this video.
The Houthis' attack on international shipping have put innocent lives at risk. They have held one crew hostage for almost 2 months.
What would a recession mean for the housing market? Now listen to this. This is going to be kind of fun here. Here are some signs economists look for to determine when we're on the brink or have entered a recession. So I'm saying that these are telling you that you're on the brink of a recession. Gross domestic product experiences 2 consecutive quarters of contraction or decline. We have already had that. As soon as it happened, they said, no, we're not. I wasn't. And they changed what the definition of what a recession is technically should be. They're saying, well, no, 2 quarters of negative growth is not a recession. It just used to be, but we're going to do it differently now. High inflation and borrowing costs slow down spending. Well, what do you know? That's 2 out of 2. Slowdown in manufacturing and trade sales. The reason you can tell there's a slowdown in manufacturing is because the trade deficit is increasing. We're buying more, selling less. We're manufacturing less, making less. You can just look at a number like that to see that manufacturing is going in a bad way. Another sign that we're on the brink of a recession, steady increase in job losses and surge in unemployment. And in case it's your very first time here, you'll need to know what I always say is that the unemployment will rise as soon as the recession starts, and it will rise throughout the entire recession. And when the recession ends, it will rise for another quarter or two thereafter before it starts getting better. But there's already a lot of job losses happening now. Despite a few good, strong job reports where it shows a lot of people joining the service industry, a lot of those people have another job because they can't afford to pay the bills of the job that they do have. The job losses have started to simmer, and they'll pick up going forward. And lastly, inverted yield curve between the 10-year Treasury and short-term bonds. We've had yield curve inversions all over the place. So then why haven't we seen a recession yet? First of all, because we're on the brink of one. We're not in the recession yet. But also, listen to this. The recession never materialized thanks to a robust job market, rising wages, low unemployment, and resilient consumer spending fueling a strong economy. Yeah, okay, whatever, sure. Rising wages never outpaced inflation, first of all. So you never got a raise. You just had a little bit less of a pay cut every year.
Containers and tankers are having to take a 5,000-mile detour around the Cape of Good Hope. That pushes up prices and imperils the passage of goods, foods and medicines that the British people and others rely on.
Signs of the economic and financial stress are emerging. Inflation remains sticky, hiring is slowing down, and total household debt is north of $17 trillion due to excessive spending in a high-rate, high-inflation environment. Credit card delinquencies have also reached their highest level since 2011. So that just paints more of a picture of the economy that I tell you about in every video. This is just more points in the story. The more things you learn, the more you're going to understand stuff. This is just another example of how bad the economy is doing. And I believe that real estate prices would come down already, and they haven't. But I thought everything's going to come down together. Bitcoin came down, stocks came down, bonds came down, office space got hit big time, but home prices have not yet declined, mainly because of the lack of inventory and the high rates. I believe as the rates start to lower, if they do, that's going to be the beginning of more inventory coming onto the market naturally. And as the economy goes into recession, and people are going to need to lean on their homes more to take money out of their homes, borrow money against their homes to survive. A lot of people at that point, when they get financially stressed, are going to start making decisions such as moving or selling their houses or going to rent instead of own. All sorts of things are going to happen naturally that will organically renew the supply.
The UK helps to feed around 100,000 Yemenis every month, with aid arriving via the very sea routes that the Houthis have in their sights.
I would be cautious with home prices at these levels. I think that they're way overheated. I think the wrong factors have driven prices higher, including monetary creation, and that there's more risk right now for real estate than there is possible reward. Look at all the great things that people have taken the Peter Leeds Academy have said to us.